Welcome back to my quick how-tos on my processes of creating graphic designs. With many great artists out there, there are many different ways and processes in which you can create something. Mine is neither right nor is it best, but it is the way I do it. As usually, most artists start out with an idea, and for this I wanted to play with a combo of slight realistic textures and stylized. I gotta get the basics down, build it from the ground up, like clay, except I'm not Demi Moore, nor Patrick Swayze. Now that I've got the general shape of the head, I'm going to add the lines of the eyes and add a little bit more refining of the face. I'll continuously transform and adjust line placement until perspectives and design fits my liking. While I do have a general idea of what I'm creating, it will form and change as I draw. My drawings will usually look closely to what my idea was in the beginning, but will end up being something slightly different. This, I hope, adds a little bit of my uniqueness into my drawings. The hint of uncertainty makes it very interesting to me. At first, I was going to go with a more modern hairstyle, but I want my art to be cool, not scare off the managers. Going with old school was what kind of set right with me the most. I'm giving her the 1920s look, short curly hair with a headband. I'll add a feather accent in the band later. I'll continuously add and take away volumes of hair here and there, keeping in mind that the headband will be pressing into it all around. I used images I found online as references to further my accuracy, but I never want to copy too closely to the image, which then it takes away from my creative freedom, thus becoming less attached to the drawing itself. I'm using a method for the headband that will ultimately save me a lot of time, where I create the first of the pattern and duplicate it across the screen. I'll then warp the length of the fit across the curve of her head and fit the perspective. Now I just need to finish up the rough draft. Here, I add the feather in her band, and the poofy coat collar, which will also serve as the border to the whole drawing. For a moment, I played with a smile, but it was too creepy. Don't get me wrong, I love creepy, but this one calls for a little bit of elegance, so back to the smirk. On a separate layer, I'll paint the base colors, which will help me visualize the end product. I temporarily add a green background so I can find more holes in the paintings and fix them. As the same process before from the rough draft, I create the first part of the pattern, copy and paste all across the screen, then combine the whole layer and I'm able to warp it. Now that I have the whole thing basically colored, I get to start on my favorite part, the texturizing of the hair. I've always enjoyed working on fibrous textures like muscles or hair. Here, I'm creating a sort of map to where I'll place darker strands and lighter ones, hence the blobs of blurred whites and black. I triggered the layer of the headband on and off to give myself a better idea of where shadows should be. For this, I know a light source will be coming from her eyes, so I draw light casted hair as such, as well as dark ones. The bright green background ended up giving me a headache, so I switched it to a softer orange. In this stage, each line is placed in orchestration with one another to create a more believable texture. In my experience, it's best if you work on one part of the hair that will go off in one direction, and then a separate part of the hair that goes off in a separate direction. Afterwards, you can combine the two with a kind of connecting texture. Creating this hair is nothing but adding layers and adding and subtracting lines and shadows and highlights until it looks right. It's all about patience. To some, this process may seem tedious, but it really is a mindless motion. especially since I don't have a mind for much else. Ask anyone. To me, the drawing of each strand is a sort of therapy. Seeing it all come together is very rewarding. Adding more glow and blur to sections and then drawing the fibers over is a good way to draw out the highlights. It also breaks up the monotony one may feel drawing the same color stroke after stroke. As a sort of icing on the cake, I'll add imperfections like stray hairs that veer off the head or opposing the directions of the texture. Since I finally have the hair texture down, I'll adjust the brightness and darks and the saturation of the color until it looks right one last time. It's important to keep everything in separate layers or separate groups, that way in the end you can adjust assets until it all looks right. Even after all the work I did, the eye just did not sit right with me. I had to adjust it until it looked right with the perspective. I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know in the comments if you want to see me draw something else. If you found this video entertaining and helpful, please hit that like and subscribe. I've got many more designs coming, commissioned and personal. Until next time, this is Pixel Nomad, wandering off to the unknown drawings.